Mom. Good morning, everybody. Glad to see you. We want to welcome you to our training on special education, frequently asked questions. My name is Melinda Elliott. I'm the presenter for the training. And this is Wallace Johnson. He is my friend, my coworker, and the person behind the scenes that makes all of this stuff work. This training is going to cover some of the most commonly asked questions by parents about the identification, referral, and evaluation process of special education. As part of our FACT series, we'll also offer Special Education FACT 2.0 that covers the IEP process, and then Special Education FACT 3.0 that covers transition process. Our Special Education FACT 2.0 is scheduled as a hybrid workshop like this. You can come in, have a little bit of lunch with us, or you can get online and do it. But it's going to be 12 p.m. Wednesday, June 17th, 2026. So we plan on doing one of these every month until we finish all three of them. This training was created with funding from the United States Department of Education to the Louisiana Parent Training and Information Center, which is a program of Families Helping Families of Greater New Orleans. And it's done in collaboration with the Louisiana Department of Education. So sorry. That makes so much noise. Yep, soda sounds, right? So in collaboration with the United States Department of Education to be used by the statewide network of Families Helping Family Centers. There's a center like us in all 10 regions, with the region 1 and 10 sharing one center. So there's actually 9 different entities, but we cover all 10 LDH regions. In order to continue to get funding to provide these free trainings, we need you to do the evaluation at the end. The evaluation results help us improve trainings and demonstrate the need for continued funding to provide these types of trainings free of charge. You're going to be prompted again at the end to complete the evaluation. It takes less than 2 minutes to do it. And everyone completing the evaluation, like if you're online today, we're going to send you a copy of the PowerPoint, and we have certificates of attendance for training hours if you need them as well. If you're online and you lose audio, you can call in on the phone number that when you got your confirmation email. My experience is if you just wait a few minutes, Zoom is going to link you back up. But if all else fails, you can go back to that email and either use the link again to get on or use the phone number in there so you can still hear it. We're using the chat box today. If you have questions, I take questions the entire time I'm talking. So y'all hit me up in that chat box. Let's see, we provide webinars and in-person trainings on special education and disability related topics. We invite you to check on our website and our Facebook page to see our events. Our website is www.FHFSWLA.org. But check them out regularly and register for any upcoming training that might be of interest to you. If you have an idea for training that we don't do or haven't done in a while, there are spaces on the evaluation. Write it in one of those spaces, because we take those evaluations seriously, and more than one of us will look at those evaluations to see if there's any ideas for trainings. But yeah, y'all let us know. If you're interested in something, somebody else is interested in it too. So one of the other things, I'm one of the education specialists at Families Helping Families. So is Wallace, and we have another one, Beryl. You could work with any one of us. But one of the other things I do that's near and dear to my heart is a program called LACAN. It stands for the Louisiana Council Advocacy Network. We link people with disabilities, family members of people with disabilities, professionals, siblings, people that care about people with disabilities, to lawmakers and BESI representatives to work on meaningful change, but systems change, big things. So right now we're in legislative session and we're working on funding for LRS. That's the agency that helps people with disabilities with employment. We're working on funding and a program for people with intellectual disabilities, similar to Amber Alerts or Silver Alerts. There's lots of research showing that if you can, our people elope or they wander or they end up missing, and if you can recover them quickly, you usually can kind of recover them. I hate to say it, alive and well. The longer it takes, the less or the worse results we have. So an alert similar to that Amber Alert or Silver Alert. I mean, it's in the legislature now. There should be a LaCan alert going out today, maybe about it. What are you signing up for with LaCan? You're signing up to get emails. Yeah, I'm hoping that you're gonna have an opinion and be willing to email or call your legislature about your opinion. Some people are going to have a story that they'll be able to tell during individual visits with the legislators. During our roundtable, we have that February-ish of every year. In an elevator, you never know where. At a resource fair, you never know where you're going to bump into your legislator. And, you need a 2 or 3 minute story that you can get in there. I'll help you write those stories. What else are we in the legislature about? Continued funding for families, helping families. And we're also working, I was really excited that there was testimony, one of the last committee hearings of a DSW pay increase and provider rate increase. Those two things go hand in hand. We don't have anyone that's saying that they're willing to do it yet, but sometimes these things take several years to accomplish, so we aren't giving up. At least some of us aren't giving up. Here in July, early August, we'll be looking at legislative agenda items for 2027 because that's the way it works. That's how long it takes to put all this together. Yellow shirt days. I have you can see them in the picture, yellow and teal shirts. If you're going to Baton Rouge and you think that you can talk to your legislator about any of or all of these issues, I can give you free one of these shirts and a folder with fact sheets. Some people testify, some people don't. There's nothing like seeing a bunch of yellow shirts in the room for those legislators to know who we are and what we're talking about. Okay, enough of that. Let's talk about our learning. Yeah, I could talk about that all day. Let's talk about our learning objectives for this training. One of the things that I want to do is introduce you to commonly used acronyms. If you catch me using them and you need me to slow down and say what the acronym means, you tell me. Because those acronyms after a while just fly all over the place. Mm-hmm. We're going to provide you the answers to some of the most frequently asked questions about young children and special education. We're going to provide you some answers to frequently asked questions about school-age children and special education, and introduce you to some great resources at the Louisiana Department of Education website. So those acronyms. Throughout the presentation, you're going to hear the following commonly used acronyms. SBLC is the School Building Level Committee. In some Louisiana school districts, this same committee is called the Student Assessment Team, or SAT, or an ABIT, that's an Academic Behavior Intervention Team. You're also going to hear RTI, Response to Intervention. OSEP is the Office of Special Education Programs within the United States Department of Education. IEP is the Individualized Education Program. FAPE is a Free Appropriate Public Education. think it's one of my favorite words. SEA or LEA or LDOE is in our state the Louisiana Department of Education. SEA stands for State Education Agency. IDEA, IDEA is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. That's the cornerstone of special education in our nation. ODR is the officially designated representative of the school district. You need one of those at your IEP meeting. And PWN is prior written notice. Prior written notice is how I know who's going to be attending to your meeting, so I kind of know what kind of meeting you're going to have. And I know what the school system is proposing or saying that they can't do. So the first part of our FACT 1.0 training is how to start the process with young children. One of the most important things you need to remember is to document all the actions you take. Phone calls, conversations. You send yes emails. That's how you document those things. You know, you get emails from the school system. You got documentation, notes from the school systems, IEPs, all of those things. You do that regardless of the age of your child. You need a paper trail, and you need to be able to produce a timeline. You don't ever want to have to, but you need to be able to if you have to. And copies of requests in the event that you fall through the cracks with your school district. Again, hopefully that's never going to happen, but just in case. So one of our first facts. My child is aging out of early steps soon. Will she automatically qualify for special education? So no, your child still needs to qualify for special education services with the local public school district. Early steps is required to notify the public school district in which you live when your child is 2 years and 2 months of age. A transition meeting should be scheduled between 2 years and 3 months to 2 years and 9 months of age to meet the timelines for eligibility determination and IEP development. Your child will need to qualify for special education services, which is why it's important to get that process started months before their 3-year-old birthday. If it's not completed by then there's likely to be an interruption in services. If your child's over 2 months and 3 years of age and you haven't heard from your family support coordinator, don't call me because I know better. I know they're talking about you about the transition process from the first day they meet you. But anyway, you call your family service coordinator. I recommend you call them and inquire about when this process will start. But I know for sure I've had kids and grandkids in early steps and before it was called early steps, and they're talking to you about it. They're trying their best. So, okay, what if you have a 4-year-old and you suspect your 4-year-old has a disability? One of the things that you can do is you can self-refer your child to your local school district's child find team. That team is charged with evaluating children suspected of having a disability and not enrolled in the public school system. All school districts have a child find team that's responsible for evaluating students from 3 to 21 suspected of having a disability and not already enrolled in public school. You can call your school system to get the name of your child find coordinator. In case that terminology doesn't work for some reason, ask for pupil appraisal. They're going to help you find what you need, or who you need, and get connected. We also recommend that you put that request in writing. I mean emails. It could be, regular traditional mail, but put your request in writing and keep a copy for your paper trail. We don't want things to get lost in the process. Okay, this is another fact. Oh, do I have any questions yet?
Nope, not yet.
Cool. Okay, this is another fact. My child already has an autism diagnosis. Why does the school say I still need an evaluation? An evaluation done for a medical diagnosis is different than the evaluation done for school classification. A medical diagnosis of autism is based on the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, or DSM, for autism. That manual includes a set of diagnostic criteria, or a list of symptoms that healthcare professionals use to determine whether a patient meets the criteria for one or more diagnostic categories. An educational classification of autism is based on the educational needs of the child and uses different criteria than the DSM manual. Some children will qualify for special education services under another category, like other health impairment. That doesn't mean your child isn't autistic. It just means they don't meet the criteria at that time. It also doesn't mean they won't meet the criteria of autism for school in the future. The most important thing to keep in mind is the qualifying part rather than the classification. IDEA is very clear that a student's IEP needs to meet his or her unique needs. Regardless of their school classification, your child's needs should be met regardless of what classification they use. I tell people all the time, it's the child we got. It's not the child that's written down here or there. It's the child that presents to us that we meet their needs. Okay, another fact is special education just for children with intellectual delays. No. In fact, most children receiving special education or related services don't have any intellectual delays. To qualify for special education services, you must meet the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act definition of a child with a disability in one of 13 categories: autism, deafness, deafblindness, developmental delay, that's up to 9 years old in Louisiana. It's different in different states. Intellectual disabilities, multiple disabilities, other health impairment, orthopedic impairment, emotional disturbance, specific learning disability, speech or language impairment, traumatic brain injury, or visual impairment, including blindness. If you want to, you can go to Bulletin 1508, known as the Pupil Appraisal Handbook. If you can't find it on the Louisiana Department of Education website, call us. We'll help you find it. That's the state's bulletin. That's the state's guidance for evaluating children for special education services. That handbook goes into great detail about the specific requirements for each of those special education exceptionalities. That guidance is written for professionals, but parents, we help parents find it all the time. Well, I think we'll talk about that a little bit later in the training as well. Okay, another fact. Do children with only speech delays really qualify for special education services? It depends. It depends on the severity. Children with speech or language delays can qualify for special education services if they meet Bulletin 1508 criteria. Children with speech or language impairment means a communication disorder like stuttering, impaired articulation, language impairment, voice impairment, and that affects a student's educational performance. The only way to know if your child's impairment is severe enough to qualify for services is to have them evaluated. For some children, speech or language impairment might be part of a larger learning disability, and it might be provided as a related service. And for other kids, it's a direct service, and it's the only issue the child is currently showing. So it's important to have a full evaluation completed to know if your child would benefit from just speech and language services or if they need other services too. So, for those of you online, we have a little poll. Are we ready? You launched it?
Yes.
Okay,
What?
so the question is, what percentage of Head Start enrollment might be reserved for children with disabilities? Your choices are 5%, 10%, or there's no requirement. Now, I can ask y'all, but y'all can look ahead at the next slide and I'll remember the answer.
Mine got 10.
Okay, a person, they're answering online, so I've got answers for two of them. There are two of that things. There's three choices, but two choices have been answered. Okay.
Which two?
10%, and there's no requirement.
Okay. How many of us are online?
5.
Cool. Okay, so let's go to the answer. Answer is 10%. The law says each Head Start program must reserve at least 10% of their enrollment for children with disabilities. Another thing that you need to know is that the income requirement for those children is different from those children without disabilities. So, you know, if you have an IEP, you want to bring a copy of an IEP, or when you check with Head Start, because it, you know, that's valuable. While many parents don't consider Head Start because they think they make too much money, they might qualify because of that higher income allowance for families of children with disabilities. Okay, now let's talk about facts about school-age children. Most students that have a known disability are usually evaluated before they start school. There are some cases when a child has a known disability, but it really wasn't impacting their education, so parents chose not to go through the evaluation process. Some of those kids might be on a 504 plan receiving accommodations. For other children, they get to a certain grade, and in a certain grade, they need more support. And for children with learning disabilities, you may not recognize those disabilities until they're in that formal education setting and academic demands. Additionally, due to injuries and illnesses, some children may acquire a disability or special health care need that suddenly requires them to need services they never needed before. So let's go back into our facts. Is it true that students enrolled in private schools can be evaluated for free? Yes, ma'am, or sir. We have sirs on. The local school district is required to perform child find duties and evaluate any child suspected of needing special education services in their district, even if they're in private school. The local school district shall ensure that all students with exceptionalities residing in the district, including students with exceptionalities for homeless, wards of the state, or attending private schools, regardless of the severity of their disability, and who require special education and related services are identified, located, and evaluated. If your child's attending a private school and you'd like to have him or her evaluated, you should first check with your school to see if they have someone there that handles the referrals to Child Find. If not, you contact the public school system directly. You to contact Child Finding, or like I had said earlier, pupil appraisal in that school system directly. Again, same caveat as I've said several times. Keep copies of documentation, all documentation, even to the point where you document your phone calls, the time, the date. So, like sometimes I talk to several people in a day. So I put the date and the time and who I spoke to and what we spoke about and what's supposed to happen. You know, are they supposed to do something or am I supposed to do something? I document everything. You know, I should have asked before now. Do we have any questions?
Nope.
Y'all have any questions? You know, because y'all can just stop me anytime. Okay. What do I do if my child's struggling in school? If your child's struggling in school, the first thing that you do is talk to the classroom teacher. There's lots of things to consider. If this is your child's first year in a formal school setting, was he or she adequately prepared for school? Are they paying attention in school? Is there behavior the child's exhibiting that's causing them not to learn? Are they completing the classwork and homework regular? Does your child attend school regularly? Those are some reasons that a child might not be doing well in school. However, there's certainly many other reasons children struggle in school, including disabilities that make learning a little tougher and might require more interventions or some more specialized support. If you believe your child is adequately prepared and there are no obvious problems, or if your child, your child already has a disability impacting his or her learning, ask for the school to be, for your child to be referred to the school building level committee, SBLC, and sometimes SAT team or ABIT team to be monitored with RTI, response to interventions. That sounds strange. The classroom teacher or parent can make that request, so you or the teacher can do it. Regardless of who does it, we recommend that you still send that request in writing, an email, and keep a copy for your paper trail. I can't emphasize the importance of maintaining your organized records of all documentation and requests made to the school or school district. Social worker brainstorming. If it isn't written down, it wouldn't happen. Okay, so let's talk about who and what that school building level committee is. The SBLC is a regular education, data-driven decision-making committee that reviews and analyzes all screening data, including the response to intervention results, to determine the most beneficial option for the struggling student. All school districts have a school building level committee known as the SBLC. A few districts changed the name. We talked about that to the SAT or the ABIT team. Regardless of what it's called, they all serve the same purpose: to review data to make decisions. Standing committee members should be the principal or her designee, a classroom teacher, and the referring teacher. The parent is invited to participate. The student may or may not attend that meeting. Other school participants might be the school social worker, the school counselor, maybe the school nurse, some other kind of interventionist, or even the 504 coordinator. It's the job of that SBLC committee, the school building level committee, to discuss the student's difficulties. The committee concentrates on one student at a time, receiving and analyzing all the data, screening information, RTI results, to determine the most beneficial option for the student. Okay, what's RTI? Response to intervention. It's a multi-tiered approach to the early identification and support of students with learning or behavior needs. RTI is an instructional approach that serves two purposes. One, it provides early intervention services to struggling students to improve their skills. And two, it's an option that can be used to identify students who have learning disabilities. Early in the year, your child's school can start looking, and they do. They test regularly for RTI during the year. I say regularly, 3 times in the year, if I remember correctly. They check reading, writing, and math. They can provide targeted teaching called interventions to help struggling students catch up. A big part of that RTI process involves close monitoring, like weekly or every 2 weeks, to see if that child's making progress. That way they can tell very quickly which kids need more academic support. If you look at any general education classroom, chances are that you're going to see different students struggling for different reasons. Some students might have undiagnosed learning and thinking differences. Others might have English as a second language. Some might be shaky on certain skills due to frequent absences or inadequate teaching. It's hard for a teacher to tell right away which students are struggling and why, especially early on. RTI helps identify struggling students early and give them support they need to be successful in school. The word intervention is key to understanding what RTI is about. The goal is for the school to intervene, step in, and start helping before anyone falls far behind. It's not really a specific program or type of teaching. It's a proactive approach to measuring their skills and using that data to decide which types of targeted teaching to use. So if you think of RTI as 3 tiers, so like a pyramid, that bottom layer of the pyramid is fat, and that's where the teachers using and measuring the skills of the entire class using a universal screening tool. Class-wide interventions can be provided here if necessary. Sometimes schools in lower socioeconomic areas, the entire class needs some interventions. That can be provided in that layer. Then tier 2 is a smaller, because we got a pyramid, right? Layer where if the student didn't respond in tier 1 in interventions, they might provide small group instruction, other types of interventions, more intense interventions, in addition to what they're doing in the regular classroom. It's not supposed to be one or the other. It's supposed to be in addition, like an extra layer to help them. And then tier 3, that's the tiniest part. That's the little pointy part at the top of my pyramid. That's even more intensive interventions. That's a small percentage of students that don't respond in tier 2. That is, there can be referrals to special education in tier 2, but in tier 3 is when I start expecting to regularly see referrals to special education evaluations. When it's done with fidelity, that means they do it according to the rules. There's rules for all of these programs. With done with fidelity, RTI will often support struggling learners with appropriate interventions and eliminate the need for additional supports like special education. RTI really works for a lot of students. Okay, my next fact. Can the school refuse to evaluate my child until he goes through the RTI, the response to intervention process? Nope. That's a simple answer. On January 21st, the Office of Special Education Programs in the United States Department of Education sent a memorandum to all the states' Department of Education offering clarity on the use of response to intervention. That memo specifically says the school district cannot delay or deny the evaluation process due to response to intervention or RTI. That being said, many school districts ask parents to give them a chance to do RTI so that they can determine if the child needs some very targeted interventions to catch them up. If your child can be caught up with targeted interventions, that's usually the best thing for a student. But I want to make sure that you don't get stuck in an RTI loop and never actually get to the evaluation. They can't use it not to give your child the evaluation. Okay. How about questions, Lois?
Oh. Nope. Okay.
I do have a question.
Sure.
SPLC, you said, it can be called 2 other things. And what were those 2 other things again?
Here in Calcasieu, it's called SBLC.
SPLC.
In other parishes, it's called the ABIT or the SAT.
Okay.
But here, to my knowledge, correct me if I'm wrong, Wallace, in all 5 of our parishes here, it's called the SBLC.
Okay. That's what I need to know.
Okay. So, can the school use my private evaluation to expedite the evaluation process? Certainly. The school district consider and should consider any documentation you provide, including any private evaluations when a child is referred to SBLC. However, most private evaluations don't meet the requirements that the school system has to follow in the Louisiana Department of Education Bulletin 1508, that pupil appraisal handbook. Therefore, the school district's usually just going to do, they could do a partial evaluation, but they're usually just going to do a complete evaluation so they can make sure that they've checked everything that they're required to check. Can the school district refuse to evaluate my child? The SBLC committee, the school building level committee, can decide not to refer for a child for special education evaluation if they think the child will not qualify or meet one of the special education exceptionalities. The school district is required to give you a document that's called prior written notice stating why they won't evaluate your child. Now, one of the little things to know about that is that they'll tell you in a meeting your child doesn't qualify and this is why. Do we need to send you a letter about that? And you might say no. You're probably not going to get that prior written notice. If they ask you for almost anything that I can think of, do I need to send you a letter about that? In almost every system, your answer should be yes. You need it in writing. Just like everything else I tell you about, you need it in writing. Now, as a parent, if they tell you that your child, that they don't believe your child is going to qualify or meet one of the special education exceptionalities, and they're not going to refer your child, you can ask the school system for an independent educational evaluation. Call us. We want to talk to you when you start that process. You need to do certain things. But the school district then has to decide if they're going to agree to pay for the private independent educational evaluation, or if the school system is going to file a process called due process, showing why they believe the child is not a child with a disability in need of special education services. Now, I can't tell you that the school system is always just going to agree to do the independent evaluation. I find that that happens the majority of the time, though there has been an occasion or two when the school system has gone ahead and taken the parent to due process. But most of the time, it just, they go ahead and they do the evaluation. So let's talk about that prior written notice a little bit more. Prior written notice is documentation. You know, I love documentation. To ensure that a parent understands that special education or related services, which the school district has proposed or refused to provide a student. The word prior is usually where I find I lose people. Sometimes people confuse it to mean it must happen before a meeting. It sounds like that, but that's misleading. It's meant to provide parents with a notice that the school is or isn't taking action. It might include, it's supposed to include, a description of the action proposed or refused, an explanation of why the school district proposes or refuses to take the action. Because this might be an action that you're asking the school system to take. And if they say no, they have to tell you why they're saying no, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. A description of any other things that they've considered and reasons that they decided not to do those things. A description of each evaluation procedure, assessment, record, or report they used as a basis for the proposal or refusal to take action. So sometimes I see something that where they say, we're not gonna evaluate and prior written notice is sent, and they tell the parent it's because the student has too many absences. Something like that. Because too many absences is one of the things that the school system has to consider, right? Good, bad, or indifferent, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that's one of the things they have to look at. So they might say that that's one of the bases that they made for proposing something or refusing something. Any other relevant factors that the school district knows they're supposed to tell you from this prior written notice. And your dispute resolution options. We have a whole workshop that we do 2 or 3 times a year, at least, right, Wallace? 2 or 3 times a year on dispute resolution options. Like I mentioned on the slide before this, if a parent asks for an evaluation and the school district refuses, they're supposed to give you that prior written notification. Some other reasons that you might get prior written notification is when you give your consent to evaluate. They cannot evaluate without your consent the first time. If your student's found ineligible for special education services, you might get that prior. You should get that prior written notice. If the school district refuses to provide an independent education evaluation, initial placement determination. Again, prior written notice. Changes in the least restrictive environment. Usually I hear about this when there's a referral for expulsion and they're recommending a more restrictive environment. They have to do a prior written notice to tell you, they call it an MDR, to tell you that they're recommending more restrictive placement. Well, and an IEP meeting. If they're changing IEP services or renewing IEP services, they're supposed to send you prior written notice. That extra piece of paper tells you who's going to be there. I like prior written notices. Is it true my child can't be suspended if he's in SPED? Idea is clear that any student with a disability suspected of having a disability can be suspended for up to 10 days for violating the code of conduct. However, unlike students without disabilities, students with disabilities or suspected must be provided educational services after 10 cumulative, some words don't want to come out, days or consecutive days in the same year. That's like if they have a disability, in an IEP, or even if they're suspected having a disability and maybe need an IEP. If you've requested special education evaluation and you haven't gotten an answer, it was ignored or it was denied, your child has those protections. That's why I'm talking all the time about that document trail, so that you could prove, yeah, I asked y'all. If your child's already in SBLC and RTI is being implemented due to behavior concerns and he's still getting suspended, you need another SBLC meeting. You need to discuss the lack of progress. It's the job of the RTI team members to monitor all suspensions, behavior incidents, and any known antecedents causing the behavior and create a behavior intervention plan that's specific for your child's needs. Just like RTI might be for academics, like reading, writing, math. Behavior, if it's not responding to interventions, you need to move up that tiered system and or refer for special education. Okay, another poll. How long do you think the school system has to complete an evaluation? My choices are 45 days, 60 calendar days, or 60 business days.
Okay, I got it launched.
And people, 2 minutes to answer.
Okay, there's people answering.
Cool. So what you got?
Got responses for 60 business days.
60 business days. Ooh. Yep. 60 business days. They have 60 business days to start and finish the evaluation. School can ask for interventions, but no, not interventions, extensions. But the parents has to agree to the extension. And sometimes it's beneficial to agree to the extension. How's that business day defined? IDEA uses terms like calendar days, business days, school days. A business day is Monday through Friday, except for the exact federal or state holiday. So you know how schools give you a week off sometimes for things? And it's really only one day in that is a federal holiday. All those other days don't count. All those other days are still business days. The only one that doesn't count is that federal or state holiday. A school day is a day, including a partial day that kids are in attendance at school for instructional purposes. A calendar day is 1-to-1, including weekends and holidays. When they just say day, it's considered to be a calendar day. One of the most frequently asked questions I get is, why is it taking so long for my child to get an evaluation? So let's talk about that 60 business days. That starts the day that you sign their paperwork giving consent. So doesn't matter how many times they tell you they're evaluating or they're going to evaluate. If you didn't sign their paperwork, it hadn't started. So it starts on that day. And that's part of the reason why I want you to put your request in writing. But even though that's not the exact day that it starts. And it doesn't necessarily mean the day that you met with the SPLC unless you sign the paperwork in that meeting when you're meeting with the SPLC. One of the other things I do is anytime I sign something, you want my signature? You need to give me a copy. You need to give me a copy before I leave, right? It just makes business sense. And if you agree to try RTI first, good. Just remember, you have to sign their paperwork before the evaluation starts. 60 days, weekends, holidays didn't count. Weather days don't count. The exact holiday didn't count, but still, that's, a lot of days in there where you think you're waiting. So like if you sign it in mid-November, you have Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, you have New Year's holidays. You might have a day or two teacher in service day, maybe Martin Luther King Day or Mardi Gras early in the year because it moves around as close as I can tell. All of those can change the timeline in ways until you might not get the evaluation done until late February. You got to keep up with those 60 days. Yeah, they're supposed to be doing that, but you need to keep up with those 60 days. Let's see, and during COVID, everything was crazy, but that's never going to happen again. That's my stance. How will I know if my child qualifies for special education? The team, including the parent, meet and review all the information that they gathered during the evaluation. So you're part of who's deciding. Parents call me and tell me, well, they did this. Well, no, they didn't do this. You either agreed or you were supposed to go on to the next step, right? Because you're part of the team. You're just an important part of the team as they are. The meeting that they do this a review of all this documentation is called a determination meeting. And after you review the information and the data, they usually come with more than one form where they said, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's the other, let's talk about it. Or, we kind of are leaning towards this one, and you make the determination. Okay, we're gonna skip this photo wellness.
Okay.
So, the school provide parent with a copy of their child's evaluation before the first IEP meeting. Let's see. Yep, they're supposed to give you a copy of the evaluation. They're supposed to give you a copy of the IEP now. If you request it, you have to request it far enough ahead for them to do it, like a week or 2 weeks ahead. But that was recently changed. I say recently, within the past couple of years. Before it was at the school system's discretion. Now they have to give you a draft copy. Because looking at all of this information is like overwhelming. People need time to look at it and to talk to their circle of support. Now,
You still gotta ask them. But they're not gonna, they don't,
I don't know, it's not an automatic, but at least you have a right to get it now, right?
It's an education plan, why wouldn't they give it to you?
They used to just didn't want to give you a draft copy. Some of them, let me say it that way. Anyway. And then the other thing you run into is that they want to do that dissemination meeting, and they want to have the meeting of the IEP meeting like right there, right afterwards. My brain doesn't do that. If your brain does that, you go right ahead. But my brain doesn't do that. Give me a day or two or a week, and let's come back and do the IEP meeting. Sometimes parents don't realize that they have the dissemination meeting and the IEP meeting because they're holding them right there back to back, Anyway, vape. Vape is my favorite term. Under IDEA, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, vape means free appropriate public education. That's a lawful term and is defined to include special education and related services that are provided free at public expense under public supervision, direction, and without charge. Appropriate meet the standards of the state educational agency, including IDEA Part B requirements. Include appropriate preschool, elementary school, or secondary school education in the state, and are provided in conformity with the IEP, and ensure each child with a disability is receiving their education services in the least restrictive environment. So yeah, I lost my letters in there. Public, preschool, elementary, secondary, then education that we talked about. That's the cornerstone of the federal IDEA law. Ensuring a child receives FAPE ensures that that they should be making progress in light of their circumstances, regardless of their disability. They should be making progress. That's why it's important for parents to stay so involved. Bullying. I've got a whole workshop about bullying. Oh, well, don't we usually do that sometime in October? Yeah. That's Bullying Awareness Month or something, yeah. Okay. My child's being bullied at school. What can I do about it? Bullying isn't any longer considered a childhood rite of passage. It's a serious problem that requires immediate action once the school staff is notified of a bullying situation. We have in Louisiana have an anti-bullying law, and the Department of Education has buku bullying information that all schools should be using. Attend one of my workshops. I will share that information with you, or just call me. On their website is a standard form that can be used to report bullying that all the school districts have to take. Again, documentation, use that form. The Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP, published guidance more than once to states to inform states that bullying of a student with a disability could constitute a violation of FAPE if the school isn't meeting their IEP goals due to the bullying. Any bullying of a student with a disability that results in the students not receiving meaningful educational benefit from special education and related services is a denial of FAPE. Children have to feel safe at school to fulfill his or her full academic potential. Remind your school staff and school boards that bullying is something they can't ignore any longer. They have things they're supposed to be doing, and they should be actively supporting bullying prevention in schools and virtually for that matter. Okay, before we wrap up, we're getting on the ending. I want to take you on a tour of the Department of Education website. It's got lots of great resources, and many were just for parents. The website address for the Louisiana Department of Education is https. You're going to get hot links when we email this to you. :/DOE.Louisiana, spell the word out, .gov /. That's the home page for the site. If you look at my screen and you see that blue arrow on the top left side, it says families and students. Click on that and it's going to bring you to the page. Which is a landing page for families and students. You can scroll down that page and click on special education resources. That's the special education resources page. And then the landing page for students with disability resources. And if you scroll down that web page, you'll find helpful resources like the special education related bulletins. There's more than bulletins in that 1508 bulletin. There's a bulletin just for IEPs. Now, be prepared. This website updates regularly. I'm showing you this today. You might go home and figure out it's not working and call me, and me or Wallace are going to sit there and help you figure out all of these links again, because like I said, every time I look at it, they're updating it. Maybe that's just me and not my technology deficit. But anyway. So, the Louisiana Education Rights for All Children. That booklet is a booklet they're supposed to give you at least once a year, unless they're doing different things. So like an initial referral, or if you request an evaluation, they should give you that booklet again. When a decision is made to take disciplinary action, they should give you that booklet again. If you file a state complaint in a school year, they should give you that booklet again. The first time you request a due process hearing in a school year, they should give you that booklet. If you ask for a copy, they should give you that booklet. Can't figure out any other way to get a booklet, call us, we'll send you a booklet. We have it on email. And ours are big. Ours is like 8 by 10.
Yeah, with the, maybe online, or I know on the book it'll say revised, and you say they updated a lot. Is there a way of knowing what specifically they updated, or you have to read the whole thing over again?
I've never figured out a way to know where they're updated until something's missing.
Yeah.
Unless somebody tells us directly, we wouldn't know unless we had an old one and a new one.
I was just curious to know, because
Yeah, even when they update this booklet specifically, they put the date on the bottom. That means that I remembered the date on the last one. My brain doesn't do that.
yeah.
There's too many things to remember like that, So, and I
was just curious to know if they,
no, it was what's right. If I have tricks, I'll tell you about. Bullying isn't a special education issue. It's one of those regular education things, although it does affect special education. Louisiana has specific laws that says the schools have to do specific things. Like I said, when you get this PowerPoint in your email, there's going to be a hot link for you to be able to go to the page where they have all the stuff about bullying. Okay, so like I said, there's another workshop on this. It's going to be June 17th from 12 to 1. We'll have a little bit of lunch again here at my office, 325 4 West Hale Street, Lake Charles 70601. I'm right behind the lawn for those of you that are online. This next one will be part 2. It's going to be about IEPs and discipline. You can come in like now or attend virtually. What else have we got? He'll have the links on here. If you need help, support, call us. You can email us. There are like 4 of us that check the email info at FHFSWLA.org. We social media all over the place, particularly Facebook, but we're on Instagram. We're recording this one. The recording is going to be on YouTube. I just caution you on the YouTube. Make sure that you're getting something that's not 5 years old, because YouTube is like that. That it holds everything. Make sure you're getting the fresh webinars. But yeah, go check out our webinars. We got great stuff on our website. If you want to be on our newsletter list, let us know. We will put you on our newsletter list, and you will get lots and lots of emails about our webinars, because we have lots and lots of webinars. And if you do my evaluation, so when they shut this, or they can go to the link in the chat, right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a link in the chat for those of you that are online to do my evaluation. The people here have a paper evaluation. Like I said, we take these seriously. We do quality control. We do quality improvement. It's required by all of our funders, and it demonstrates the need for free trainings like this, and your satisfaction. Couple of minutes. If you're on here and getting registered and you want your own certificate, then let us know. Drop us an email. One of us will figure out how to get you the evaluation and get you counted and make sure you get the things you need. There's been a lot of stuff, Wallace. Do we have any questions in the chat box?
Nope.
Think of something after this? You can call me or email us. Your box. Call us or email us. Feral too. We do that. Our information is on this slide. And thanks again for coming today. Check out our website and Facebook page for everything. And the rest of us that are here are going to have lunch.
Yay.
Right? Because I can sell lunch. You can
What about-
stop the recording if you haven't already, Wallace.
I'm trying to find it. I don't know. It disappeared on me. Oh, there we go.
And what about the certificate?